Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Padadana Ranjana Yasodanandana Padadana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vishnu Pad Paramangsa Parivachakachaya Stotarashata Shri Srimad Abhayacharana Ravina Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramangsa Parivachakachaya Stotarashata Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namachaya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Seko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Prahlad Lakshmi Nrsimha Bhagavan Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Iskon Singhachalam Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Oh, alle Ehre Seiden versammelten Gottgeweihten. Alle Ehre Seiden versammelten Gottgeweihten. Alle Ehre Seiden versammelten Gottgeweihten. Alle Ehre Seiden Shri Guru und Kuranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Wir sprechen auf Deutsch. Who doesn't understand German? 1, 2, 3. So, kannst du übersetzen, Mataji? Ins Englische. Ins Deutsche könntest du übersetzen. Wer versteht kein Englisch? War das keine Gopal-Probe? Okay. Ja, aber dann müsstest du mir jetzt jemanden bringen, der ins Englische übersetzen kann. Ja. Die wichtigsten Leute sind die im Tempelraum. Okay. Also dann brauchen wir jemanden, der ins Deutsche übersetzt für keine Gopal-Probe. Denkst du kriegst das hin? Ja, du? Ja? Okay. Hast du die deutsche Bhagavad Gita? Okay. Then we read in English. From the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, translated and... Bleibst du nicht da?
Deutsch oder Englisch?
Ich muss auf Deutsch sprechen.
Deutsch?
Ja. Ich muss auf Englisch sprechen, meine ich. Weil hier sind noch mehr Leute, die Englisch sprechen. Hare Krishna. Okay. Okay, Übersetzung ins Deutsche passiert? Okay. Okay, we're reading from Bhagavad Gita, translated and explained by Srila Prabhupada in accordance with the previous acharyas. We're reading chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text 8. Ja, Vers 8. Ja, Kapitel 9, Vers 8. Okay. Prakriting svama vastabhya visrijami punah punaha bhuta gramam imam kritsnam avasang prakriter vasat. Word. Prakritim, the material nature. Svam, of my own self. Avastabhya, entering into. Visrijami, I create. Punah punaha, again and again. Bhutagramam, all the cosmic manifestations. Imam, these. Kritsnam, in total. Avasham, automatically. Prakrite, of the force of nature. Vasat, under obligation. Translation. The whole cosmic, this is Krishna speaking, the whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will it is annihilated at the end. Let's read it one more time and you can repeat. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. Yes. Okay. Purport. This material world is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After the purport is finished, I will try to go to a topic. Indirectly it is related, but it is not directly to the purport. So if you want to ask anything or comment anything on the purport itself, you have to listen very attentively. Okay. This material world is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has already been explained several times, meaning in the Bhagavad Gita. At the creation, the material energy is let loose as the Mahat Tattva, into which the Lord, as his first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, enters. He lies within the causal ocean and breathes out innumerable universes, and into each universe the Lord again enters as Garbhotaka Shayi Vishnu. Each universe is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as Kshirodaka Shayi Vishnu, and that Vishnu enters into everything, even into the minute atom. This fact is explained here. He enters into everything. So, which means that everything comes from God, and then everything that comes from God, God is within that also. That is basically explained here. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature, and as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. It is not that all is evolved. The different species of life are created immediately, along with the universe. Men, animals, beasts, birds, everything is simultaneously created, because whatever desires the living entities had at the last annihilation are again manifested. It is clearly indicated here by the word avasham that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. Avasham means who remembers or knows, because you know Sanskrit. Avasham means automatically. So, yes. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again. And all this is done simply by the will of the Lord. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of God. And after creating different species of life, he has no connection with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gananjala Shalakaya Tsakshurun Militam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Nrsinga Jai Nrsinga Jai Jai Nrsinga Praladesha Jai Padma Mukha Padma Bringa Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will it is automatically manifested again and again, and under my will it is annihilated at the end. Okay. Any questions or comments? Yes?
I have a question, but maybe I can also ask it in the end of the...
You can ask now.
Okay. So when we were talking about how the universe is created, and then all the living beings, all the species are created, and then Krishna lets them be as they are, according to the rules of material nature. In this, when I hear this, I always ask myself the question. So we know that, for example, stories in Srimad Bhagavatam are not limited to the history of this world, right? They are from many other yugas, and there are animals as well. Like, so those animal species exist. But I always think when we talk about the history of this world, why do we say that those species did not evolve according to laws of nature but existed? Why don't we say that they evolved according to a plan? According to the plan that we would end up with those exact species, but according to the laws of nature.
So you're asking why it is automatically said here, or?
No, but why in the purport this explanation is given that first God creates all species and then lets them loose, like according to laws of nature. Why?
Yeah, I guess Srila Prabhupada is going here. Srila Prabhupada has a mission to speak up against the modern worldview of so-called scientists who claim a theory to be a fact that that life is created out of matter by chance. They say that there is the material energy, and then at some point in time it will start moving. Like if you have this pillow in the stack of pillows in the back, or the table next to you, the theory is that at some point in time, if you let it stand there for a long time, then one day it will start moving. It will start being a living entity. So they say that first there was matter, and then at some point, long time, or some kind of chemical interaction. Now, if you let the table stand with the air for a long time, then there will be some chemical reaction, and then it will become a living entity. So modern scientists basically, they say that. And Srila Prabhupada is always emphasizing that no, the material creation from the very beginning, it is meant for the living entities. The living entities are the cause. God is the supreme living entity, and He is facilitating the whole material creation for us small living entities, and we can try to exist here and try to move in this world and fulfill our desires, or fulfill our ideas of what is the meaning of life. So the living entities, the world is meant for the living entities from the very beginning, very specifically. And therefore we say that and the first living entity, and we learn from the Srimad Bhagavatam also then that before all the universe was created, there was a personality who was created, who is Lord Brahma. You are familiar with this understanding? So Garbhutakashaya Vishnu, he is lying down in the universe, and then it says a lotus flower is growing from his navel, and then on that lotus flower, Lord Brahma, he takes his, in some sense we can say he takes his birth there. He gets that body and he comes into existence in that form of Lord Brahma. And he, in general, he's a living entity like us. And then he starts to create the planetary systems and everything. So it begins with a living entity. And then he creates more living entities from his own body. He can create with his mind, and says from his heart comes Narada Muni, and I'm not sure, I think Kardama Muni, whom we are speaking about in the Bhagavatam classes these days, he coming from the mind of Lord Brahma. So, is it? Yeah. So Brahma, he creates. So he's the first living entity, and then from him come more living entities, and they need a place to live. So then the inert matter comes, like the different planets, the different lokas, as they say in Sanskrit. So from the beginning, the whole universe is created by living entities, and it's created for living entities. That's my understanding of what is spoken about here. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, that's a very good answer. I have a few other questions, but I think it will carry it all long.
Okay, then we will try to make a conclusive statement here.
Shirodakshaya Vishnu resides in our heart as Paramatma. So here it is written, Shirodakshaya Vishnu is present in the atoms also and the living entities. So both the super soul is present.
That's my understanding, yes.
But atoms don't have the soul,
But the super soul. Yes. Okay. So, yes, Prabhupada in the purport itself, he just explains how it is going on. And I remember that there's one thing that my Diksha Guru once he said in a lecture, which is that one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he was doing some study at the university, and I don't remember anything about the specific topic, but basically he was discussing with his teacher, with the professor, that what is the ultimate driving force in this world? Because this verse, it describes the mechanics. Krishna is telling that, I have that power to manifest the material creation, and by my decision, by my will, it is coming into being and is being annihilated again, and that happens in cycles. And so, but the question is why? And normally the person who is doing the thing, he is also the one who has a desire. But it is very interesting to note that Krishna, he has no specific desire to create the material world. But rather it is us. And because we are so small and helpless and not able to do so much, therefore he does it for us. And he gives us this facility to have a certain experience. So, and in that conversation, that disciple of Prabhupada, he said the ultimate driving force in this world is love. and his professor, he said, no, in this material world the driving force is sex life. And then the disciple, he came back to Prabhupada and asked him about this, and he said, he's so pessimistic. Is there not some higher thing? And Prabhupada said, no, your professor, he is right. And sex life in a broader sense means lust, and lust doesn't mean only that specific sex life, but it means selfishness. That I want to enjoy and I want to control, and everything in life is meant for that. And that is material existence. Everyone is trying to enjoy, and everyone is trying to control, and we try to be the center of our existence. But this is and we spend, like here it is explained, the whole cosmos is annihilated and created, and again and again and again. And it is explained here in the purport that at the end of one creation, we had the state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is manifested again. Prabhupada is writing here. So at the time of the last creation of the universe, we had a specific body, a specific activities, specific desires, and then the whole creation closes down. And then it comes into being again, and then also what we wanted before, what we did before, what we were before, that also comes into being again. So, and that goes on. Prabhupada said, we are in the material energy since time immemorial. You cannot trace it back. It's not possible. It's time immemorial. So, and you can look at the time dimensions. There are so many details also given in Shastra, but basically it's millions of millions of millions of millions of trillions and trillions and what else, zillions, what I don't know, but many zeros behind the number which we have in front, and of years or lives even. So, and we're always trying to be in the center. And we always try to, Krishna is saying that this is the nature of the living entity in the material world. Krishna himself is saying, there's my material energy, and then there's the higher living entities, which are a higher energy, and they try to exploit. They want things for themselves. And basically all living entities, if you have an ant or a fly, if you have a big animal like an elephant or a lion, or human beings as well, all of them are trying that. Exploit the material energy for our gratification. And that is our disease. And we don't like to listen to the Bhagavad Gita. So, because it will tell us that, oh, you're not in the right position. And in itself one could say, oh, what is the fault with this? I try very hard, and sometimes I get something and it feels like pleasure, feels like something good. But it is not our constitutional position. And we are very much absorbed in that endeavor, and therefore on our own we will practically never fully realize what our real purpose of life is. And therefore we depend very much on one very merciful arrangement which Krishna has made, which is that he and his devotees, they come into this crazy place of crazy people to try to explain to us, to reveal to us that the purpose of life is different. The purpose of life is to realize that God is the center, Krishna is the center, and everything, including ourselves, is supposed to be dedicated to him. And if we do that, then we take up the purpose of our existence, the actual purpose of our existence. And Krishna is, his nature is Ananda, he is blissful. And by coming in contact with him and by dedicating ourselves to him, we also experience that Ananda, blissfulness, internal happiness. And in order to become convinced of this understanding, we need the personality who lives like that. And today we are advised to remember Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the spiritual master of our life-giving force, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, if you see him on the picture on the altar or in any other picture, when you see him sitting, you will always find him sitting very, very straight. You will always find that he's sitting completely straight, and basically his whole life is completely straight. It's only there ordinarily, especially when we like there's one kind of being straight in trying to exploit the material energy, but the material energy is a very degrading force. So even if you go full force for material enjoyment, you will become hunchbacked. and the material, your body will deteriorate, and you will lose your strength of bodily strength, physical strength, mental strength especially also. You will become an animal next life if you are not careful. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was the opposite of going for material things. His whole life is an uncompromised dedication to spirituality, an uncompromised dedication to Krishna, to devotional service, and because that is what he came for. He didn't come to try to be the center. Like we heard this morning, his father, he was a great devotee himself, and he was praying that God, you sent me one of your people. He was praying for a ray of Vishnu, it says. And so that ray of Vishnu, or that associate of the Lord, that was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So from the very beginning he came like this. And in the morning it was also indicated, and I was reading that also, that he, when he was practically newborn, a small child, small baby, and maybe some months old, and then they were staying in Jagannath Puri, and all of you are familiar with Jagannath, Yes? Okay, yes. So there's a Ratha Yatra, they call it, every year, and they bring Jagannath on a cart, and he moves through the city, and then somehow the cart, it stopped before the house of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and therefore also small. At that time he was named Bimala Prasad Datta, and basically the cart stopped before the house, and they couldn't move it anymore. And for 3 days they couldn't move it. And I think it was on the 3rd day. Then the mother of Bimal Prasad, she brought him out, and she gave him up to the priests who were taking care of Jagannath. And so he was allowed to go up there. And small child, he crawled to the feet of Lord Jagannath and touched the feet. So, like that. And then it says, at that moment, there was one garland from Jagannath, it fell down, it fell on the small child. And everyone was very amazed. And then when Bimal Prasad was 5 years old, he already manifested so many capacities. When he was 5 years old, one time he was eating a piece of mango, and it was not prasadam. It was not offered to Krishna first. And his father, he mildly chastised him. He said, "No, this is not good." And at that moment, small 5-year-old boy took a vow: "I will never eat mango again in this life." And he did that. He did that. He was so determined. And then when he was 7 years old, it says, you can visualize Charu and Dani. I think they're 6 years old. So you can give them 1 more year. So when he was 7 years old, he knew all the verses of the Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit, and he could also explain them. So in 1 year, you call Charu, hey, you come here. Advaita can ask him, can you give the Bhagavad Gita lecture? So like that. So extraordinary capacity. And then basically his youth goes on like that. He's a genius at school, a genius at college, and a genius in a post of work, profession which he is given. But in the earlier days in school and college, he basically quits it because he wants to stay in celibacy. He thinks that if he becomes too well educated, then he has to get married, and he doesn't want that. So he stops that. But still he gets a high grade post, like he's a personal assistant of a local king in Orissa, I think. And I didn't check the details, but some like very exalted politician, or even like king, it said king. So very small parts in India, and they're divided in kingdoms. So he was a personal advisor and doing personal service for the king, and that he also refused when he was, I think, I don't know the age, but it must have been something like 25. When he was around 25, he gave up that profession. He didn't enter it, he gave it up at 25. And then all the time he was treated and educated by his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's specific desire was to establish the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the modern times, because it had been lost. And he found that he needs help to do that, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared for that. So from the very beginning of life, he learned about the movement of Lord Chaitanya, which started 500 years ago, and he was chanting himself. It says that he had one brother, that I also read today. He had one brother, and that brother, he became sick. He had some nerve disease. And then Bimal Prasad, I don't know how old he was, but he was still a boy, or young, like youth, like he was 10 years old or 15 years old. And what I read is that he took a kartals and he sat next to his brother, and he, for 6 days, he was just chanting in front of him. He was not eating during that time. For 6 days he was not eating. And he was just chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra for him. And after 6 days, on the forehead of that brother, there manifested a tilak from the Sri Sampradaya. And then this brother, he remembered his past life. He said, I was a Sri Vaishnava, and I offended a Gaudiya Vaishnava. I did an offense. And therefore I had to take this birth. And after he said that, he basically, soon he gave up that body. He left. And I don't know, I didn't understand it completely. Maybe he just went back to Godhead because now his offense was purified. I don't understand it completely. But the whole incident is very, very amazing. And then when, so his whole life, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was trained by his father like that to practice Krishna consciousness himself and to spread Krishna consciousness, like to be fully aware of the movement of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya himself, and his whole life was meant for that, and he was trained for that also. And then his life was moving like this, and he would write articles and assist his own father, who was also writing so much. And then when he was 31 years old, he took a vow, which was the same vow that his father had also taken, which is that he took a vow to chant 1 million names Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And it took him 9 years and 4 months and a few days more. And 9 years, 4 months. So after that, he was 40 years old, something like that. And basically, it means that you have to chant 190. I'm not 100%, but I think 192 rounds every day. Every day, 192 rounds. And it says every day he basically almost didn't sleep. And amazing enough, during that period when he was chanting all those rounds, at the same time, he was also writing a commentary on the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he was, many people heard of his exalted bhajan and also came there to talk to him, and he took time for them as well. And some of them became his first disciples. And he had to build a small hut that was in Mayapur, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, no, appearance place of Lord Chaitanya. And there and then it says that there was some holes in the roof, and when it would rain, he didn't care about that. He just took an umbrella and Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So he continued his bhajan. So very uncompromising. Uncompromised devotional service. And therefore he can sit like this all the time. Like his whole existence is like that. And yes, and what I found very interesting detail is that this vow which he took, he was chanting all the time. Before him, there was a deity of Lord Chaitanya. So we can imagine that Lord Chaitanya is everything to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And also very amazing incident, which was also Ramananda Prabhu he spoke about this morning, is that how he became the disciple of his Diksha Guru, because he was his own father, he already initiated him into chanting Hare Krishna, but he did not initiate him into Gayatri mantras. And like we have first initiation, second initiation, so we could say that he received first initiation from his father, but then his own father told him, you get your second initiation from Babaji. And they had met before. Gorkishodas Babaji, he was, one could say, a follower of his father, so he was in between. Therefore, on the altar, there is Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, then his Diksha Guru, Gorkishore Das Babaji, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is the Shiksha Guru, instructing spiritual master of Gorkishore Das Babaji, and he's the father of Bhaktisiddhanta, so Gorkishore Das Babaji is in between, although they are father and son. And then, so they had some contact before, and from what I understood, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was very impressed by Gorkishore Das Babaji also. And then his father, he told him that you take initiation from him. And so he went to Babaji Maharaj, and there's one version I heard from one senior devotee, and he's expressing like some subtleties of the situation in that way. And he said that basically he went to Babaji Maharaj and asked him that, you please give me initiation. And Babaji Maharaj said, no, I cannot do that. You have an aristocratic background, you're so learned, I'm just a simple man. Because materially speaking, he was a very simple man. And this is not a good match. No, the spiritual master should be superior, and like that he like put him off. And so Bimala Prasad, he went back to his father, and he told his father that you told me to take initiation from him, but he doesn't want to initiate me. So what can I do? And then the father says, you go there, you ask initiation from him, and you get your initiation from him. Otherwise, you don't come back home. You don't come back home. I don't want you as my son anymore if you don't get initiation from him. So it was very heavy on him. And we should, like this mango incident also, from that we learned that he was very, very obedient to his father. Like father saying one time, you should not eat the mango without offering it first to the Lord. And that small like correction, he took it so serious because he was so obedient to his father. He was so humble. And so father telling him, you don't come back home before you get initiation. It's a heavy, heavy, heavy chastisement. Heavy test, heavy challenge. And he felt so obliged to his father, so he went back to Babaji Maharaj and told him that, please, you initiate me. And several times it went like, okay, later I will ask Babaji Maharaj, he said, I will ask Lord Chaitanya. I will ask Lord Chaitanya, he said. And maybe if he permits, then I accept you. And so come back later. So he went and came back and tried. And it went like this several times. Babaji, he always said, you put him off and come back later, come back later. So it went like this for a few times. And then one point he continued trying, and Babaji Maharaj basically said, no, I cannot initiate you. It's not good. And then he felt so lost. Like I said before, uncompromised. No compromise he did. And he was so determined that he said, "No, if you don't initiate me, I go to the Ganga and I drown myself. What is the use of my life if I cannot fulfill the desire of my father and become your disciple?" And then Babaji Maharaj said, "Okay, you go." And then when he actually started walking there, then he said, "Okay, you come back. You come back, I initiate you." So it's a heavy test. And like that. And then, as I spoke before, he took that vow. He chanted for 9 years, very, very determined vow, chanting Hare Krishna before Lord Chaitanya. And basically then there was one person who was, as far as I remember, he was a disciple of his father, and that disciple, he had an idea that Bhaktisiddhanta, he should start preaching. And then he came there, and he looked for this educated young man, and he asked the people, and they said, "No, we don't know such a person. We just know one madman. He's running around and not doing, like, he's acting like a madman." And then he thought, "Okay, let me look." And then he found him, and it says one time he saw him, he had his clothes on, he was yelling, "Go Ranga! Go Ranga!" And he was jumping into the Ganga with his clothes on. Things like this. And then he approached him, and that was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. At that time, I don't remember the first initiated name, but that was him. And he approached him and told him that, "No, you should preach the mission of Lord Chaitanya." And the response was, but here is Lord Chaitanya, and here is Panchatattva, and I'm seeing all the pastimes, and I'm part of the pastimes, so I'm in the movement already. Now, what are you telling me to do anything with this Sankirtan movement? I'm in there already. So basically he was witnessing the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in Mayapur because of his fully entering those pastimes by his bhajan. And then later he one sannyasi. He was shaven-headed and he looked very clean and nice. And he came in front of the door of that person. And then he said, "You remember me?" So he was the same person. And he had decided to go back to the preaching. So, and then he started preaching, and he manifested the Gaudiya Math as an institution, which was a platform for modern Indian people to appreciate Vaishnavism, to appreciate the movement of Lord Chaitanya, which had previously been become very degraded. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was the best example showing that to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava is not abominable. He was such an example. He was a brahmachari for life. He was so learned, educated, and exalted in so many ways. And he decided to be a Vaishnava. And so many exalted Indian people actually became his followers and disciples. And during his life he created that platform. And after he left this world, then unfortunately that deteriorated again because his disciples didn't follow his instructions properly. But he also met our Srila Prabhupada. And then Srila Prabhupada, he basically the same thing that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did in India, Prabhupada brought that same thing to the Western world. And what Bhaktisiddhanta established as Gaudiya Math in India, Prabhupada established as ISKCON, first in America, and from there all over. And now we are here, and we have temples in Jandelsbrunn, and in Germany a few centers, and there are centers in almost all countries of the world. In Africa, in USA, there's many temples. In Europe, all over Europe. Middle East, there's more and more preaching going on. Like we have more and more Arabian people coming here also. Our temple commander is from Jordanian. So that's very nice. And and Prabhupada, he basically just repeated what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had done before. And that is so wonderful. And what we don't, how to say, we find it easy to relate to Srila Prabhupada because for example, Srila Prabhupada, he was so accommodating, and he is so accommodating. Like in the beginning in New York, then he was preaching, he was giving lectures and inviting people to come there, and first people who came were the hippies. The hippies, they were fully into drugs, fully into illicit sex, but they wanted to know about life. What is the meaning of life? They were ready to experiment, ready to think beyond their own background. And they came and listened to the lectures. So Prabhupada accommodated them. And actually then it says that he saw how after they came for his lectures, after that they went for the donut shop. Donut, it's a round, like kind of bread. And it's sweet, and there's sugar on top, and things like this. And Prabhupada saw that. And after he saw that, he started cooking halava. So therefore we have halava, because Prabhupada was accommodating those people. And seeing that, okay, this is what they need. So Prabhupada, he created many bridges in that way. Opulent food and just respecting that we people from the West, we are inclined towards materialism, and we need so many crutches, we need so many additional help. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, when we look at his life and like which he lived very outwardly, Prabhupada also, he performed so many austerities. When you read about his life in India, then you also hear about Prabhupada that he was chanting 64 rounds every day, like for big periods of his household life. He was a householder, but still he was chanting 64 rounds daily. And he was sleeping very little, like 3 or 4 hours. Was always associating with sannyasis, and then he became a sannyasi himself and also did many austerities then. But Prabhupada, we don't see that so much. It's like, it's hidden. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it's not hidden. He took a vow, and for 9 years I'm just chanting. So and thus he may feel, to us it may feel that he's not so close to, like how can we follow such a process? So he was not accommodating. So he was just more foreign to us. Like we can. It's more difficult for us to relate. But we should be aware of that. I was thinking like this. He's sitting 9 years. He's sitting before the deity of Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya is saying that he's predicting. That's recorded in Chaitanya Bhagavad, or scripture, that my name will be sung everywhere in the world. So Lord Chaitanya was saying. And Bhaktisiddhanta, he was sitting, and that prophecy had not come true yet. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he knew that, and he was sitting before the deity for 9 years. 9 years he was sitting there before the deity, chanting. And I was thinking, probably he was thinking of us. He was thinking of us. He was thinking that all these people are there all over the world, and what can we do to help them? So even though it may feel like we cannot relate to this powerful, strict personality, and if we try to be like that, we would be called fanatic. So how can we follow such a person? But we should be aware that it is by the mercy of that person also that we are sitting here now and taking prasad and chanting a little bit, trying to chant 16 rounds every day, trying to get up early in the morning, and distributing Prabhupada's books which are also a manifestation of the desire of his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he established the printing of books. He started using the printing press. He put it even in the temple room, he put it. He was considering it so important. He said it's the Brihat Mridanga. It's a Mridanga. So the Lord, he enjoys that sound. Like I don't know the precise sound of a printing press, but it's like it's a loud sound. Like all the metal clashing and whatnot. Sounds it produces. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, the Lord, he likes that sound. Because it's the production of transcendental literature. So, and here we are. We're trying to follow this process. We're trying to preach. So those two things, that is Lord Chaitanya's desire. You chant Hare Krishna, you help others to also start chanting Hare Krishna. And that's what we do. And that is how we pay back. That is how we honor Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur today. That we increase our determination or come back to a determination that I will take this Krishna consciousness very serious, and I will in my own life, and I will also express that seriousness by bringing it to others. So it's very nice that the last few weeks we went on books. Even the devotees here from the temple went on book distribution several times, like once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. Advaita, I think this time 3 times or 4 times this week. And so we go out and maybe Hare Krishna Maharaj. So maybe we can continue that. Maybe we can continue that. So we go out every week, maybe once, and we or maybe twice, and we allocate that with the service. Maybe I was also thinking, like, it was so nice. We had this. we had read the whole Bhagavad Gita on Gita Jayanti. So I was thinking that before the appearance day of Sri Advaita Acharya, which is the next appearance day, before the appearance day of Advaita Acharya, let us read one like big chapter or big piece of literature about Advaita Acharya here in the temple room all together. Why not? Because everything begins by hearing and chanting. Like everything else will be so charged if we do that. And I remember I was not there when the reading was going on because I was going with them on the book distribution, but when I come back in the evening, the kirtan was so ecstatic, and I felt like everyone who is staying here is so ecstatic, and the whole temple room is so vibrating with that ecstasy, because the devotees were reading the whole Bhagavad Gita together. So I'm thinking about this. Maybe someone can push the managers a little bit. Like, before Advaita Acharya's appearance day, let's read, like, I remember there's this chapter in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the beginning, it's like, 600 verses. It's the glories of Advaita Acharya. Maybe we can read that. Everyone coming together, at least 1 or 2 hours. 600 verses, it's like the Bhagavad Gita almost. So maybe 2 or 3 hours, or even 3.5. Or then Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda is the next appearance day. And then maybe we can come also together in the temple room. Big chapter about Lord Nityananda is there. And so many pastime chapters are also there. And we can read about Lord Nityananda all together. We can read for 1 or 2 or 3 hours about Lord Nityananda. And then Gaur Purnima, Lord Chaitanya is coming. And then we can come here. Everyone, all the people who stay here in the temple, come together. And for 1 or 2 or 3 hours, we read about Lord Chaitanya. Best before the festival, because the festival is a public program. There are guests coming, and there's an official schedule, and if you are not internally prepared, then you might just have an external experience. You may not go so deep. But if we prepare our consciousness before already, the day before, or the week before, a few days before, then our meditation is already settled up. Our meditation is already there and proper. And then when the festive day comes, we will celebrate our internal experience by the external activities. So, yeah, I think that would be so nice. So we can push the managers a little bit. Maybe anyone of you who is inspired to propagate this idea, I think it would be very good. And that is how we appreciate Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, by doing such things. He was sitting for 9 years and 4 months in front of a deity of Lord Chaitanya and was chanting japa. So we can, at least for a few hours, we can come together and hear and recite the glories of Lord Chaitanya and his associates. Okay, so I would like to end here, and thank you for tolerating my going long. Maybe someone would like to add something or ask something. Maybe you would like to add something, Prabhu. Okay, then I hope you all can take nice rest and get up nicely, and we'll meet you all together for Mangal Arti. Or even before. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.